Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name's Brandon. Today we're going to look back at my official predictions, my total predictions for the 2022 World Cup, and I'm going to react to see how accurate I was. So if that sounds interesting, then let's hop right into it. So about a month ago, I made a video where I gave my total predictions for the 2022 World Cup with several categories, including the champion, runners-up, third place, fourth place, the biggest surprise team, the biggest flop team, as well as some individual awards like the Golden Ball, the Golden Boot, and the Golden Glove. So now let's look back at each of my predictions, see what actually happened, see how accurate my prediction was, and if it was wrong, who actually was the true winner of that category, whatever that category was. So let's start off with the champions, and I said Argentina would win the World Cup, and obviously Argentina were the champions of 2022. I am very proud of this prediction. I thought, I called it. I had it since June when Argentina completely crushed Italy in the Finalissima. I said that they were my favorites, and I stuck with that. There was moments where, I was thinking maybe Brazil, because Brazil before the World Cup was looking really, really good, but I stuck by Argentina, and that ultimately proved to be a wise decision. And the reason that they were my favorites was after that game, the Finalissima, I was like, okay, this team is a serious team because, they won the Copa America. They played well, but I think that there was moments throughout the Copa America where they did get lucky, or they relied upon kind of that combinable nature of the tournament where, sometimes they got outplayed at certain parts of the tournament, or they didn't play well, but they relied on individual performances and within their team, things like that. And you can't do that at a World Cup to win the World Cup. Like, you can go far, but you can't win the World Cup. You have to have the utmost passion, the most composure, and as well as quality on the field as well. And this Argentinian team is full of quality. It is a stacked team. Now, I don't think it's the best team we've ever seen in terms of player quality. I think maybe 2006, 2010 was a little more talented, but this team is far more solid. They're far more just composed, cohesive. They work together as a team. It's not just a bunch of individuals that are relying on Messi. It's a well put together, well drilled, well oiled team, and Messi is an important cog, obviously the biggest cog, but still a cog within that machine. And obviously, if you look back at the last World Cups, the last time a South American country won was 2002 in Brazil with that super squad, that dream team full of those incredibly talented players. Since then, there hasn't been a South American champion. Teams have gotten close, but it's just been dominated by Europe. And when Argentina beat Italy, I was like, okay, well, granted, Italy was, at that point, they did fail to qualify for the World Cup, but still, they are the reigning European champions, and they got completely destroyed. It wasn't like Argentina just won after a really close game. They won off a set piece or something like that. No, from minute 1 to minute 90, they completely crushed Italy. And since that point, Argentina has gotten better and better with each game, crushing teams left and right. And throughout the entirety of the tournament, I think they were the best team. I think they were deserving champions. Now, I will say, there was moments where it looked like it was going to fall apart. Obviously, they lost their opening match to Saudi Arabia. Now, I made a video about that if you're interested in that video in particular, but I think Argentina ultimately got a little unlucky in that game. I don't think they got outplayed. Now, obviously, they made some mistakes, but I think it was more of a freak result than anything. They almost threw the game against Netherlands. They almost bottled it. They had to go to penalties, and then they almost bottled it against France as well. Now, again, in each of those instances, they got a little unlucky. I mean, they got a little unlucky against the Netherlands because of the height advantage. Like, you can't really help it that these Dutch guys coming off the bench, Luc de Jong and Wout Weghorst are like 6'5", 6'6", and then Lisandro Martinez is like 5'9" or 5'10" or something. You can't help that. And then also, France was awful in that game up until Mbappe just had a magical performance. So you can't really do anything to stop that to a certain extent. But, overall, I think Argentina was the best team. And I don't think that Argentina this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I don't think this Argentinian team is like a era-defining team. I don't think that they maybe compare it to like Germany 2014, or Spain 2010, Italy 2006. Those teams were just some of the best teams you'll ever see. Now, this team is very, very good, especially I think in the context of world football right now, they are the best team in the world. But this team is more so defined by individual performances. Emi Martinez, Enzo Fernandez, Alexis McAllister, and of course, Lionel Messi. I think this performance of Lionel Messi will go down as one of the best individual performances at a World Cup ever. Similar to Diego Maradona in 1986. But we'll get on to individuals and all those awards later on. But I said Argentina, and the correct answer ultimately proved to be Argentina. Now let's go on to runners-up, and I said Portugal would get to the final and they would ultimately lose to Argentina, and I was wrong. Portugal did not get to the final. They got eliminated in the quarterfinals by Morocco. Now, my prediction was that Portugal wasn't necessarily going to play good. I don't think that this team is playing as good as they can be. I think it's a little of an unbalanced team with Fernando Sanchez in charge. I think that he did a great job to win the Nations League and of course the Euros, but I think the team has moved past him. They're not a pragmatic and defensive team. They should be an attack-heavy team. And he's just a wrong manager for that. But I thought that they would scrape their way by. I thought that, relying on guys like Ronaldo or Bruno or Diogo Costa or Pepe, that they would, maybe be really scrappy, that they would, maybe concede a lot of goals, but ultimately they'd find their way all the way to the final. Similar to how Argentina is rallied around Messi. They all want Messi to win the World Cup. I thought Portugal would all be rallied around Ronaldo, and they all want Ronaldo to win the World Cup. And unfortunately, that really wasn't the case. There was moments where Portugal played bad and they were scrappy. I mean, we saw against Ghana how they conceded 2 goals. They were able to win 3-2, but they conceded 2 goals. But the team, I feel like, they lacked a little bit of composure at times as expected, but there wasn't that same rallying spirit around Ronaldo, and Ronaldo himself didn't have the best performance. Now not everyone, but a lot of people are criticizing him, saying he's one of the worst players of the tournament, that he had an awful World Cup. I don't think he had an awful World Cup, and I don't think he was anywhere close to being one of the worst guys of this tournament. But when you compare it to Messi, he did not have anywhere near the type of performance that Messi had. I thought he was okay against Ghana, and he scored a goal, and he became the first guy to ever score in 5 separate World Cups. He also, I thought, played well against Uruguay, and he also looked good coming off the bench against Switzerland and Morocco, but it just, it wasn't there for him. I think the whole club situation that's going on, and also his family situation, is kind of detracting him away from football. It's really kind of affecting him off the field, which translates to his on-the-field performances, which is really sad because, I think the team did look better without Ronaldo. It was unfortunate. As a fan of Ronaldo, as someone of Portuguese descent, it was very sad to see Ronaldo's basically World Cup career end in tears the way it did. But you have to give credit to Morocco. I think they just were better than Portugal. I don't think ultimately Portugal was that bad in that game or anything like that. I don't think that defeat really rests on Santos or Ronaldo or even Diogo Costa, who you can criticize and say he should have done a little better from that goal. I think it was ultimately just Morocco being stronger defensively and just having the better form going into the game. So unfortunately, Morocco ended the possibility of a Messi versus Ronaldo, Argentina versus Portugal final. And the team that did end up making it to the final was France. I thought France, other than Argentina, were the best team in the tournament. I think actually France, the defending champions, I think they were better this time than they were in 2018 in some cases. In other cases, they were better in 2018. But I gotta say, I don't think that France was particularly good in 2018. I think they just benefited from all the other big teams not really playing to their ability. This time around, I think they got far because of individuality and, of course, Mbappe. Mbappe was insane this tournament. If not for Messi, he would be clearly the golden ball, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, France was ultimately the one that made it all the way to the final. They were defeated in the final on penalties by Argentina. And unfortunately, I got this one wrong. I thought France was going to get eliminated in the round of 16. I thought that they would finish second in the group and then get eliminated by Argentina, which did not happen. They topped the group. They stormed through the round of 16. They struggled a little bit in the quarterfinals, but then they found themselves in the final, and deservedly so, if I'm being honest. So my third place team I said that Brazil would finish third place. I thought that they would top their group, they'd storm through the round of 16, quarterfinals, and then they would meet Argentina in the semis, and we'd have an iteration of the Brazil-Argentina rivalry in the World Cup stage with such high stakes. And I thought it would be a slug match, but ultimately Argentina would find their way through, just as they did in the Copa America final, and then Brazil would go to the third place match where they would convincingly win third place. I thought, besides Argentina, Brazil was my second favorite, and statistically, according to everyone else, all the betting and all that stuff, Brazil was the favorites heading into this World Cup. And I was tempted to say that they were my favorites, but I still stuck with Argentina. And I gotta say, even though Brazil got to the quarterfinals, even though they played some beautiful football at times, this overall was a very disappointing tournament from Brazil, considering the quality that they had, considering the high expectations. They got eliminated in the quarterfinals by Croatia, and it was all on their doing. Again, I made a video about this if you're more interested in going more in depth, but that defeat, the defeat on penalties to Croatia was completely on Brazil. I thought throughout the tournament, defensively, they were really strong. I thought at one point they were the best team defensively throughout the entire tournament, but going forward, there was no fluidity, there was no cohesion. It was kind of like the team was set around defense, and then for attack, it was kind of just the players who are in that attacking roles it's all up to themselves. It's up to themselves to figure it out, to score. And that works in the group stage. That works in, against weaker opponents, especially just with the attacking talent that Brazil has. But that doesn't work when you go up against bigger teams. And also, maybe even more crucially, I think there was an aura of arrogance around this Brazilian team where they thought, okay, yeah, we're Brazil. We don't really need to push into our highest gear. We can just coast through games and win. And again, that works against smaller teams. That works in the group stage, but that does not work when you get to the latter end of the tournament. And ultimately, they were disappointing. Now, they did get a little unlucky with injuries. I mean, Neymar got injured, Alex Telles got injured, Gabriel Jesus got injured, and Neymar was able to come back, but still, I think ultimately this is, even with those injuries, this is down to Chiche. This is down to Brazilian players. They scored first against Croatia. They had it in the bag, but then they took their foot off the gas. They let Croatia get back into the game, and then they got to penalties. And penalties a lot of times is luck, and Croatia were more lucky, and they did create more of their luck by practicing penalties better. Now, the actual third place team was Croatia, who eliminated Brazil, got to the semifinals, and then beat Morocco in the third place match after losing to Argentina. Now, this is a wonderful result for Croatia. I did not expect them to get this far at all. I knew that they would play well. I thought that they would top their group. They actually didn't top their group, and that's how they were able to play Brazil. They finished second, and then they eliminated Japan on penalties before eliminating Brazil on penalties. I thought that they would, like I said, top the group, and then I thought that they would most likely go out in the round of 16, maybe quarterfinals. But credit to Croatia. As I said before in other videos, the fact that they got this far, the fact that they were able to make back-to-back semifinals, this small team that doesn't really have the biggest talent pool. A lot of their star players are getting on in age, and they don't have in many cases, they didn't have adequate replacements for the stars of 2018. The fact that they're able to get all the way to this point is crazy. It's great. Credit to Croatia, credit to Luka Modric, credit to Dalic, the manager. Great performance. They deserved it. They deserved to get this far. Now, for my fourth place team, I said Denmark, and this is probably my worst prediction here. Denmark was awful this tournament. I thought that Denmark would be, we'll get on to the next category. I thought they would be the surprise team of the tournament, similar to how they were at the Euros. At the Euros, they were the most exciting team to watch, probably. They scored some beautiful goals. They were just the most fun and open and dynamic inside to watch with all the players. Everyone knows their role. Everyone was going forward and doing well. There wasn't really a standout guy on the team. Everyone was just doing great. I thought that we would see a replication of that at the World Cup. I thought that great form would carry over, because not only were they good at the Euros, but they were good in the Nations League. They beat France twice this year. And yet, when the World Cup started, they start off with a really poor and dull and boring 0-0 draw with Tunisia. And in many ways, Tunisia was arguably the better team. Then they got deservedly beat by France. They did put up a good fight, but France was clearly the better team. And then they lost to Australia. Deservedly lost to Australia. Yes, they had more possession. They had more shots, but none of the chances they created really troubled Australia, and then they left themselves wide open on the counter, and Australia deservedly eliminated them, and then they went through with France in that group. I thought Denmark was just, going to be, like I said, going to be a really exciting, fun team to watch, but they just could not score goals. They only scored one goal this entire tournament, and it was from Christensen, their center back, and it was pretty much an avoidable mistake at the back off a corner for France. Going forward, none of their guys really showed up. I thought Eriksson looked kind of poor. I thought Braithwaite, Paulson, Damsgaard, Cornelius, all these guys they just didn't have it. It just didn't click this tournament. And it's a shame, but they definitely were not fourth place material. Ultimately, the fourth place went to Morocco, who actually was a surprise team. Morocco came out of nowhere. Everyone thought, including me, that they'd get eliminated in the group stage. I didn't think they'd be bad, but I didn't think that they would be this good. Not only did they go through, they topped the group over Croatia. They beat Belgium on the way there. They kept a clean sheet against Croatia as well. Then they eliminated Spain. They eliminated Portugal. And they played really well against France in the semifinals, and then ultimately they lost in the semifinals, and then they did lose in Croatia. They were unfortunate with some injuries and also just simple fatigue, because I don't think they themselves expected to get that far. So credit to Morocco, the darling of the tournament. They kept the clean sheet against Croatia, Spain, Portugal, and Belgium. That is absolutely nuts. They only conceded, up until the semifinals, they only conceded one goal, which was an own goal from one of their own players. So, they were the ones that ended up finishing fourth, and obviously big credit to them. And my prediction of Denmark was completely wrong. Now, for the next category was a surprise team, and we already kind of talked about this, but my surprise team was Denmark. I thought that, people had high expectations for them going into the tournament, but I thought that they would exceed those expectations and then play even better by getting to the semifinals of this World Cup. But ultimately that was wrong for all the reasons that I just mentioned before. I also said that Qatar would be a surprise team. I thought that Qatar would surprise everyone, because everyone was saying, like, Qatar, they don't have any football in history. They're going to finish bottom of the group. They're going to get humiliated in each of their games. They're going to play awful. And ultimately, I was saying, no, that's not going to happen, because Qatar does have experience. They're the reigning Asian champions. They crushed everyone in the Asian League. They played in the Copa America. They played in the Gold Cup. They played in the Arab Cup. And they had respectable performances in each of those tournaments. And this team has been playing together for years. Their manager is from La Masia. They have a lot of influence there from La Masia and things like that. I thought they were set up for a good run in this tournament. I thought they'd make it out of the group and make it to the round of 16. The host nation almost always does well. Not to mention that I thought maybe be some help from the referees, but I couldn't be more wrong. I still stand by the fact that Qatar is legitimately a good team. I think going forward, if they keep this up, they could qualify for the next World Cup and maybe do better there. They'll probably do good in the Asian Cup and stuff like that. But I think the simple fact they didn't have World Cup experience is what really just ruined this team. I think that, they just look scared going forward, because this is a team that they defend well, and then they are dangerous on the counter. And yet we didn't see any of that this tournament. Akram Afif and Almawez Ali, who are some of the most dangerous strikers in Asian football, were completely invisible this entire tournament. They were bad. They were really bad. I think statistically, Qatar is the worst team in the tournament, and I think performance-wise, they also were the worst team in the tournament. They lost every single one of their games. They only scored one goal, and they looked really poor. They looked scared, and it's understandable considering none of these guys have ever played at a World Cup. The country of Qatar has never made it to a World Cup before, and not only are they making it to their first World Cup, but they are the host, and I think that was just ultimately a step too far. And they didn't even have help from the referees. Now, there was that goal from Ecuador at the beginning of the opening match, which was, a little dubious there. But other than that, actually the referees made decisions that went against Qatar a lot of times, a little unfairly. Like, for example, in the game against Senegal was outplaying Qatar, but Qatar had a breakaway, and Akram Afif got taken down in the penalty box. Should have been a penalty. I thought it was a clear penalty for Qatar, but they didn't give it. And there was a few other instances like that. It's crazy, because the tradition is that you can go to every single World Cup in history. The host nation always does well. Even in 2014, when Brazil got beat 7-0 by Germany, they made it all the way to the semifinals. So every single host has a great performance. Even South Africa in 2010, even though they got eliminated in the group stage, they tied Mexico and they beat France. This time, Qatar, this is the first time in World Cup history that Qatar, or the host nation, is bad. And unfortunately for Qatar, they are the ones that break that trend. The real surprise team, as I already talked about this before, was Morocco. Obviously making it to the semifinals, beating Portugal and beating Spain and beating Belgium as well. That's absolutely crazy. They had some wonderful performances from Bono, the goalkeeper, Saiss in the back, as well as El Yamik and Ekerd, and Amrabat, I think, was their standout player. But Ziyech and Nesiri, the whole team was very, very good, and they fully deserved to make it that far. Honorable mentions to other surprise teams, I would say Japan. Japan were in a very tough group with Spain and Germany. Everyone, including me, thought that Japan would be respectable, but still Spain and Germany would wipe the floor with the rest of the opposition. That wasn't true. Japan ended up beating both Spain and Germany. It's completely insane. You know, it's already a big enough shock to beat one of them, but they beat both of them. And I got to say, I think they did get a little lucky in some games. They did get outplayed at times, but still, they were able to fight back and win. And then the game against Croatia was probably the most equal game, the most well-balanced game throughout the entirety of the World Cup. It really could have gone either way. They ultimately lost on penalties. Croatia was better on penalties, but still, the entire 120 minutes, it really could have gone either way. That was crazy. There's a few other teams as well. Australia is one, as I mentioned already, the fact that I thought that they were the weakest team on paper throughout the entirety of the tournament, and yet not only did they beat Denmark, they finished over top Denmark and then went all the way to the round of 16. And, you know, they got outclassed by Argentina, but still, it was a good performance. There was a moment there where it looked like they were going to tie up the score. They made it tough for Argentina. And there's a few other teams that were good, but ultimately, I think the real surprise team was not Denmark, it was not Qatar, it was Morocco. Now let's go on to the flop team, and I said that the flop of the tournament would be Belgium. I've been saying for years that I think this Belgium side is heavily overrated. I think that they have a golden generation, but they wasted the golden generation on two subpar managers, those being Wilmots and Martinez. I think that, you know, they were disappointing at World Cup 2014, but understandable. It's their first major tournament in a while. I thought that they were disappointing at Euro 2016, and even though they made it to the semifinals and they won third place at the World Cup in 2018, I thought, you know, it was disappointing because they could have gone more. I think if there was a tournament that Belgium was going to win, it was going to be the 2018 World Cup, and ultimately they got far, but they didn't really play well. I thought that they could have played a lot better, and they lost meekly against France, who, again, I don't really think France was necessarily that good. This tournament, I expected Belgium to, you know, kind of be at the tail end of that golden generation. I mean, you just look at players like Alderweireld and Vertonghen and how old they are. Hazard is a shadow of the player that he used to be. And Lukaku, as good as he is going into the tournament with an injury, and he actually missed the first 2.5 games. Now, you still had De Bruyne and Courtois and other talented players, as well as young and up-and-coming guys like De Ketelaere and Doku, but still, I thought that considering the group that they're in, I thought Canada would be a surprise, and then I thought Croatia would top the group. Now, Canada, they played well in that game against Belgium, but they ultimately were not the surprise that I thought they were. And Croatia was good, and Morocco was the one that was the surprise, but it ended up in a situation where Belgium got eliminated in the group stage, and basically all the reasons that I thought that they would get eliminated ended up happening. They just looked slow, they looked out of form, there was no cohesion there. Even De Bruyne, I thought, didn't really have that good of a tournament. Courtois, not really on him, it's not really his fault, but he didn't have that good of a tournament either. So my prediction here, I thought, was 100% correct. You know, it's not the most groundbreaking prediction because I think this Belgian team has been in decline for some time. We look at the Nations League, for example, they had some pretty poor results. But, you know, I'm proud that I called that, proud I got it right. I'm also proud because I've been saying Belgium is overrated, and a lot of people have not agreed with me. A lot of people had made fun of me, especially when Belgium did good. I thought Belgium would crash out in the group stage in 2018. I thought that, you know, they were the team that everyone was expecting to go far, and I thought they would completely just get, you know, destroyed or fall apart. That didn't happen. A lot of people laughed at me for that. So now I'm vindicated because this Belgian team, which I've been saying is overrated for a long time, finally showed why, or they finally proved my argument right. Now, there's a few other teams that were flops as well. I talked about Denmark. I think Denmark is actually a bigger flop considering how well I thought that they were going to play. Germany, too, they got eliminated in the group stage. Now, and it's back-to-back World Cups where Germany gets eliminated in the first round, which is utterly insane. Now, I do think Germany got a little unlucky. I thought that they played well at times, but still, they weren't clinical. And, you know, there was bad luck still, but they lacked composure in a lot of areas. And, you know, the squad also is lacking in some parts of the field. And then to a lesser extent, you can argue Brazil was kind of a flop team. Now, obviously, they had a good result, but the fact that they were the favorites heading into the tournament and they didn't even make it to the semifinals is a little bit of a disappointment there. So now let's go on to the individual awards. And then for the Golden Ball, I said Neymar Jr. would win the Golden Ball, again, because I thought Brazil was going to go really far. I thought Brazil was going to have a monstrous performance, and I thought a lot of that was going to be built upon Neymar. And I also looked at the form Neymar's in going into this tournament with how great he's been playing for PSG, how motivated he looks. You know, he hasn't really been diving anymore. He doesn't have all these other off-the-field distractions. He looks focused. He looks motivated. He was looking in great form. And he didn't have a bad tournament, but he didn't win the Golden Ball. In fact, he wasn't really close. And he can count himself unlucky because he got completely hacked down by the Serbian defenders in that first match. And as a result, he got a really bad ankle injury. He had to miss the rest of the group stage. He did come back for the game against Korea and the game against Croatia. And overall, between the 3 games he played, I thought he did well. I thought he had a good performance. He scored a penalty against Korea. He had an assist, I believe. And then he also scored that wonderful goal against Croatia to open the score. But still, it wasn't enough for him to win the Golden Ball. I don't think Brazil's disappointing campaign is on Neymar. In 2018, I think Neymar, his antics on the field kind of distracted from Brazil's playing well. I think it took away from Brazil's performance. But this tournament, I think Neymar did everything right. It's just that he doesn't benefit from the fact that he got injured, as well as the rest of the team not really playing that well. So it's unfortunate for Neymar, but the Golden Ball went to Lionel Messi, and I think that is fully deserved. Messi, obviously, 3 assists, 7 goals, 10 goal contributions. That equals Maradona, who in 1986 had 5 goals, 5 assists. And that is just a monstrous performance. Messi is the first player in history to score in the round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinal, and the final of the same World Cup. And then you add that to his 2 goals in the group stage. You know, it is crazy. The way he was able to drag this Argentinian team to the final. Not to say that this Argentinian team was bad, but I think if you remove Messi from this team, they don't win the tournament. This is as much Messi's World Cup as it is Argentina. You know, it's almost hard to find words to describe how good his performance here was. Now, you can criticize him saying, oh, he scored a lot of penalties, stuff like that. But yeah, you know, a goal's a goal, not to mention, you know, if you look at the chances he created, his dribbles, his successful dribbles, and also his leadership role, too. The way he led this Argentinian team. Many people have criticized his leadership skills in the past, saying he shouldn't be the Argentina captain, but I think he really proved all those people wrong by leading his country to their 3rd ever World Cup. Honorable mention to Mbappe as well, who had a really good World Cup as well. If not for Messi, he'd easily win the Golden Ball. I mean, how can you argue with 8 goals? 8 goals! That is insane. Speaking of Mbappe and his 8 goals, let's go on to the Golden Boot. And I said that Lautaro Martinez would win the Golden Boot. And my reasoning for that was because Lautaro Martinez has been really consistent for Argentina at the last 2 Copa Americas and the Finalissima. I thought he played really well. He always shows up, and he's a very clinical goal scorer. And, you know, Argentina, I had them as champions. I had them going far, so obviously he had more opportunities to score. And I also said in the group stage, the teams that they're going up against didn't have the best defense, so there'd be a lot of opportunities to score. And I got to say, it was looking like Lautaro Martinez was going to be at least in contention for the Golden Boot when that first game against Saudi Arabia came. But the offside flag, I think, killed his confidence as he scored 2 goals. One of them, which clearly offside. The other, which I think should have been given, but it was wrongly taken off. And that, I think, just ruined his confidence from there. He had a poor performance against Mexico, and then he had a poor performance against Poland. And then because of Julian Alvarez, he ended up getting Lautaro Martinez's spot and starting throughout the rest of the games. Lautaro Martinez ended up winning the tournament, sure, with Argentina, but he scored 0 goals, and he missed some wide open opportunities against Australia, as well as in the final as well. It wasn't all bad for him, though, because he did score the winning penalty against the Netherlands. So, you know, it wasn't all bad there. But the real Golden Boot went to Mbappe, who scored 8 goals. Brazilian Ronaldo, scored 8 goals in the 2002 World Cup. And I thought that was a stat that was not really going to be touched for a long time. But here we have Mbappe, who not only scored 8 goals, but also had 2 assists as well. He had a complete monster performance of the tournament. Messi was right behind him with 7 goals. And like I said, if you remove Messi from the equation, Mbappe wins both the Golden Ball and the Golden Boot. Credit to him. He carried this team similarly to how Messi carried Argentina to the final. Mbappe carried France to the final. And, you know, France played awful in the final. And Mbappe dragged them back, clawed them back to that tie to bring it to penalties. And he was also, other than Kolo Muani, the only one to score in the penalty shootout there as well. So my prediction was pretty wrong on this one. But now let's move on to the last prediction. And I said the Golden Glove would go to Diogo Costa. Like I said, I thought Portugal would go really far in this tournament, and I thought that they play really scrappy. They wouldn't really be playing to their best, but they would be relying on luck, individual performances, and one of those individual performances would be Diogo Costa. I thought he'd be really bailing Portugal out. And I gotta say, Diogo Costa was probably, at least out of the starters, Portugal's worst player. He had blunders all across the tournament. Against Ghana, he almost gave up a goal to tie it 3-3 in the 90-something minute. I thought, you know, he was a little poor on some of the goals that Portugal conceded throughout the tournament. And, you know, he only kept 1 clean sheet, which is not the best. And also, you could argue that he was at fault for the goal that eliminated Portugal, that header from En-Nesyri. Now, I don't think it's 100% on him. The ball was kind of at an awkward distance, so he came out of the goal to try and punch it away, but it wasn't close enough that it was an easy punch. He had to make up the distance, but, you know, a goalie of that stature, considering how good form he's in at Porto, I think that, you know, it is a little disappointing for him. The real Golden Glove ended up going to Emi Martinez, and I think it's fully deserved. I thought Emi Martinez, obviously winning the World Cup in the penalty shootout, he saved a penalty there against Kingsley Coman. Also, he saved 2 penalties in the shootout against the Netherlands in the quarterfinals. Not to mention the millions of saves that he made throughout the rest of the tournament. Crucial saves. I think the best save of the tournament, Kolo Muani's volley in the 122nd minute in the World Cup final, which was saved by Emi Martinez. Also, Australia had that one really close shot that they could have tied it 2-2. Martinez saved it there. And then there's a bunch of others that I can mention. I think he fully deserved the Golden Glove. And my prediction, completely wrong. This one up there as one of my worst predictions for this time around. Credit to, there's a few other goalkeepers. I thought Livakovic for Croatia, as well as Bono for Morocco, were very good, and if it wasn't for Emi Martinez, either of them would be winning the Golden Glove. And also shout out to Szczesny. I think Szczesny was Poland's best player, and if Poland wasn't so poor, I think Szczesny could have carried this Polish team even farther. But anyway, guys, let me know how your predictions went yourselves. Let me know what you think of my predictions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Anyway, my name is Brandon. This has been the Football Bloc. Hope you guys have a nice rest of your night.